Welcome to High-End Client Acquisition Podcast. My name is Marian. I'm your host, and this show is here to teach you how to attract your dream clients on autopilot in 30 days or less. Each week, I bring you a guest or a strategy that can help you take your business to the next level. Don't forget, you can always get the episodes in your inbox or messenger at clientacquisitionpodcast.com. Hey, Hannah. First of all, thank you so much for being on the show and taking the time to share with us your experience, your knowledge, and pretty much, the secrets that a lot of people want to find out about the speaking world. But for the people that may not be familiar with who you are, what exactly you do, can you give us the backstory of how did you get into this world? And pretty much why? Like, why was the reason that you wanted to get into this industry?
Awesome. Well, first of all, Marian, thank you so much for having me on the podcast today. I'm truly honored to be able to come and just share a little bit about who I am and my heart and what I have the awesome opportunity to work on every day. So first of all, thank you. In terms of background, currently, I work as a learning manager for a large peer-to-peer network of entrepreneurs called Entrepreneurs Organization. We have about 14,000 members from all over the world, a lot of different stages, a lot of different learning offerings. And I have the really cool opportunity to curate the content for a number of our different programs. And so what that means is I spend a lot of time watching speaker videos, and I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts and reading articles and just finding really cool people with really cool stories. And so we even had the opportunity to meet at an event just like that, where I was so grateful to actually come across you and hear more about your story and just what an awesome person you are. So a lot of what I do, I consider myself really blessed to get to do that every day and learn as I go. I think this constant desire to learn more, that curiosity. And I'm really thankful I get to work in an area that fosters that curiosity, and I get to meet so many people with great stories. So in terms of background, I'm like, how did I get there? I mean, you want the long and short? I think the short version. It's the short version, because it's kind of amazing. I had worked in international development for a number of years in communities all over the world, looking at how can we build sustainable communities. And I realized in my work that entrepreneurs were really at the front lines of building communities, creating opportunities. And so I said, you know what, my next venture, I want to be working with entrepreneurs, and I want to be adding value to these leaders around the world. And curating story and curating experience is something that I've always been passionate about in sort of every role that I've ever played or everything. And so when I took the role with Entrepreneurs Organization on our learning team, it was sort of that marriage of all of those things coming together. And yeah, it's been fantastic. We get to put on a number of different events, a number of different opportunities for learning, both online and in person, all around the world, and it's been fantastic.
Awesome. No, it's a really great story, just because it also helps you connect with so many people, right? Like at so many different levels. Also, you get to experience, like you said, we met at the Reach Live event not too long ago, and that was an awesome event. But since you get the chance to see and meet so many speakers and so many awesome thought leaders, I know the audience would be like super kind of dying to find out a couple of the secrets that you've been able to kind of see behind the scenes. So what do you think from your experience, what's the number one thing that helps an event planner make a decision out of, let's say, 100, 200 applicants or something like that? Because I think a lot of people have the misconception of you need to be a best-selling author, you need to have 1 million followers on Facebook and Instagram, and you need to be a huge influencer, or you need to be featured in all these huge PR places. Like, what's your thought on that?
Sure. No, that's an excellent question. And I think you hinted at it, but it's really true. You don't need all of those things, like, just to cut it to short. I think there's a number of different factors that we do look at and that I look at whenever we're planning an event. We really think a lot about the story and the journey that we're taking our participants on in the specific event. So there is this level of, does the content that they have apply to what the learning program that is? So I think there's that level, which is this just the right kind of content for us in this specific offering? But then beyond that, I think it's really there's some basic things regardless of the specific offering. So there's how clearly are you communicating your story, whatever it is? Are you really the master of your own content? Do we get a sense for who you are and what you're about? Are you authentically showing up and sharing that story? And is it then content and a story that will resonate with our audience in whatever the offering is? It doesn't have to be, millions of followers on Instagram or a best-selling book. I think some of my favorite speakers have been people that we found and that maybe not everyone knew about, and we were able to sort of introduce to our stages, and it was amazing to see them sort of then just take off with popularity. So I think coming back to it, it's sort of that marriage of, is this the right content for us? And then the credibility. So I think coming back to credibility, I think a lot of people define that externally or think that it's defined based on number of followers and books and all of those sorts of things. But I often look at it as no, but how well are you communicating the story to me in your brand, whatever you're sending me, whether, it doesn't have to be a fancy glossy website, but do you have an abstract and a bio that's clear and says, this is who I am and this is how I'm going to show up and how I'm going to impact your audience? And then just also generally when we're able to connect, how approachable are they? How responsive? How much do they want to work with us? This back and forth, are they easy to communicate with in the process? Just as much as you can have all the bestsellers in the world, but if you're not easy to communicate with and you are super high maintenance, we'll buy your book and read it. The end.
No, that's an awesome point. So I want to dive a little deeper into the credibility part. What do you think, putting all the best-selling books and all the rest of the things aside, would credibility be footage of the speaker, speaking on other stages, but instead of having the speaker reel all polished and nicely edited? Because at the end of the day, we all know, right? You can put together a bunch of the most awesome videos that you've had in the past couple of months, and then you put a nice background music on it, and all of a sudden that becomes an awesome speaker reel. But what do you think credibility means in your eyes? Is it, the video with you, a raw footage of you speaking on different stages and connecting with the audience? What is the best, asset, sort of say, for a beginner speaker?
Speaker reels is something that I see a lot. I hear a lot about, hear people pushing, and frankly, I don't like them. I know, probably sounds horrible, but as someone who is constantly curating speakers and reviewing, it doesn't feel authentic to me, frankly, a lot of times, because it's it's literally the highlight reel. So, they made a cool point here, and it's stringing a bunch of Twitter posts together or something. And it's okay, cool, but that was 5 seconds of a 60-minute keynote. For all I know, people were asleep for the other, the rest of the time. And so, granted, I don't usually want to be inundated with, every recording of every opportunity ever. But I think it shows a lot when a speaker contacts us and has done a little bit of their research ahead of time and knows who our audience is, and has done a little bit to go, okay, you're looking for a speaker for, I say, whether it's a chapter event or one of our global events. And so here's a footage of me speaking in front of an audience perhaps of the same size, or here's me speaking on content that I would propose for this audience. Something where there's just that next step of attention to it. I think it's pretty obvious, and I think we've all been in this scenario. It's really obvious when you're getting a one-size-fits-all response or a canned response. Sometimes people forget to change the name even,
Oh, wow.
So I think that's one of the number one ways to just sort of be okay, no thank you. When it starts to feel hey, like there's other people, meeting planners, event planners, they're all people too. And they all like, we're all on the same page that we want to have like the most awesome experience and event ever. And we want everyone to succeed in every role of that. Like we want to see you as the speaker succeed. We want to see you like knock it out of the park. And so having that conversation ahead of time to go like, hey, I have a better sense of what you're looking for, or I want to have a conversation. I understand that everyone's going to come to the table fully understanding, but that there's that interest to learn and asking those sort of questions where you can tell there's a little bit of understanding already there. That goes a long way. I think I've heard it said, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but I've heard it said that people like are much more likely to like connect with you when you can exhibit that you understand their pain point, even above all of the like, certificates and the this and the accolades and the books and all that. If you can come to the table and say, hey, I understand your pain point. And I think the same is true for event planners and meeting planners is if you as a speaker coming and going, hey, I know this is your audience and, say you're working with entrepreneurs and, my research has shown that this is a topic that really resonates. Or, hey, I saw online that you're planning an event for this and this is the topic. And here's something that I speak on that I think might be of interest to you. So I think even just that additional, not a full on, it doesn't have to be a fancy speaker reel. Doesn't have to be every video that you've ever recorded or a copy of all your books and all of your collateral, but really just a personal message. Doesn't have to be long. Sometimes short bullets is great, to the point. To say, hey, I thought of you with this because of this. Can we talk? And honestly, those have been some of the most impactful sort of connections that I've had.
That makes a lot of sense. I guess, short, straight to the point, because at the end of the day, we all busy. You guys have, tons of applicants that you have to go through every single time. And I think what I understood, and correct me if I'm wrong, like for example, if you have an event that's, let's say, talking towards entrepreneurs that, need help with marketing, and then the speaker applies, and instead of him just, throwing a canned message, he would actually do a little bit of research and understanding what's the topic of the event and what is the problem behind that event, and then what is the solution that the speaker brings to the table, and actually for him to put that in the messaging that tries to connect with the event planner. At that point, you understand that, okay, this guy actually did his research, he understands the problem that the audience has, and it's clearly that he has a solution for it because he actually mentioned it in the message. So is that correct? Did I understand?
Yeah, absolutely. I would recommend anyone thinking about speaking to start creating your top 5 like stages you want to speak on, opportunities that you want to connect. It doesn't have to be to everyone, like that's exhausting and thing, but start to think about what are the organizations that like connect. I personally connect with, and I think my message is, and start to do your research on them so that when you do the reach out, like you can put a little bit more thought into it. And that I think is really, that extra care and attention to detail is really what makes an applicant stand out to me.
No, that's awesome. And that gets me to the next part where I know even you personally are so passionate about branding and, the whole process that comes into place. How important do you think branding is for a speaker, especially again, because we're addressing people that are applying maybe for the first time or the second time, and they don't understand the whole kind of, not the validation process, but how to improve the chances to actually maybe be considered for, like the next round of applicants, if it's like 100 people, and then only 20 remain in the last round type of thing. How important do you think branding plays in this game? Because, you said at first, right, if you send me a website of yours, it doesn't have to be polished and things like that. But what's your thought on the branding portion of the application?
Yeah, well, I think branding is super important. I heard a quote that says, your brand is what is being said about you when you're not in the room. And I think one of the challenges that you have as a speaker is that you're not going to be able to have an in-person meeting with every meeting planner or every person that has in a decision-making role about the stage. It's just not possible for us. In my organization, we have a lot of committees that make decisions. And so frankly, a lot of the decision-making process is, hey, here's someone I spoke to as a meeting planner. Here's, their link to their video of them speaking to a similar audience. Here's their one-pager abstract bio. Here's their website. And so I think the question asked is, how well do those other pieces of your brand tell your story? If you're not there to explain it, will they do a good job of explaining who you are, what you're about, and how you can actually meet whatever the need is? So I think branding is really important. It's storytelling. And as speakers, I think that's often a lot of times what we're trying to do is tell a story, and your brand has the ability to continue that dialogue. That's often what I encourage people, both professionally and personally. It's branding, like you said, is something I'm just really personally really passionate about. And so work on frequently. It's what I read for fun, if that's a thing. It really is what helps people go to the next level. It's one thing for you and I to have a conversation, but then if I can go on your website and go, oh, this feels like a continuation, like it's the same person on the website as when I'm talking to them in person on a video or on a call, that goes a long way. And I think that's also a good place to sort of highlight. You don't have to email me all of the certifications and all the web links and all this, but who you've worked with and all the sort of things. But a website's a good place for those things to be housed, to say, oh, okay, there's a little additional credibility to say, oh, they know what's going on. Like they've connected on these certain levels and different things. So helpful.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And now that you mentioned the storytelling part, I kind of want to understand a little more is like the storytelling, because now we kind of passed the stage of the application. We know that what we need to do in order to connect, at a deeper level with the person that's accepting the applications, meaning you do the research and you understand what's the problem for that audience and then how you can bring value to it. But now let's assume we got the gig. What do you think, or what have you seen work the best for the audience in terms of storytelling? Like how much the speakers should focus on using storytelling? Is it, out of a 1 hour keynote, should you use 20%, 50 minutes or whatever? What is 20% out of 60 minutes? 12 minutes, something like that. Should they focus more on the storytelling? How much do you think it's kind of like the perfect point over there?
Yeah. So I think that's a great point. So similar to branding, I think the first thing that you have to do is really understand who your audience is. So all of the pro speakers that I've worked with, the ones that have really knocked it out of the park, the first things is the questions that they turn around and ask me is who's going to be in the audience, who's represented, where are they from, what are their age, what are their industries, what's going on. And so to your best ability to get some of that information, I think before you even start crafting your message is really important, because you need to keep who that person is in mind always. And so I think then based on that, you're going to go, okay, so this is who that person is. You have that face in mind of who you're talking to. Well, what's going to appeal to them most? I would say, 9 times out of 10, we really do, for our audience in particular, really encourage a level of storytelling or a level of authenticity. One of my favorite authors, Brene Brown, she did a talk, and she talks about how we have to remove the mask, because at our core, what we desire as humans is that authentic connection, that real vulnerable authentic connection. And she said that the challenge that we face in the world today is that we often do mask to mask. So we never lift our mask. And so then we're trying to, what we want the most, we actually stop because we show up with a mask on. She said mask to mask will never make an authentic connection. And so honestly, I think this applies on any stage and anywhere. Yes, there's a level of professionalism and polish that we're looking for, but authentic connection happens when you show up and you share, your true story.
Wow,
so I do think that really has value. Do I think we need to know every story? No, of course not. But I think starting from a place of human connection, I think oftentimes people can get up and feel like they have to list their credentials, and there's almost this intimidation of who's in the audience. But at the end of the day, we're all human. We all have some of the same basic needs and desires in life. And maybe we've had different experiences, but there's a level of humanity that when we show up authentically, we really, truly can connect. And so that's really what I encourage speakers, even the ones that are not particularly on, the high inspiration phase. Maybe they're talking about technology, but hey, where can you seed story and pull people in to this? So it's not just here's the facts, here's the 3 steps to improve X, Y, and Z, but like, why does that matter? And how I think one of the most effective ways to pull people in at the beginning of a talk is through story, through finding that common connection.
No, that's super powerful. And even what you said just a couple moments ago, the mass to mass, because we try to, or maybe even in the speaking applications, the speaker kind of tries to look even way bigger than he actually is, like adding all the credentials and adding all the maybe social influence or whatever it is. I guess that's what I'm thinking is like, okay, but how can you present yourself, even though you may have some influence, but having that authenticity in the message when you connect? I think that was super powerful. I think that's a tip that everybody should kind of make note of. But all right, perfect. So
can I say one other thing on that? Sorry.
Yeah.
I can tell you hands down, the people that have potentially, how do I say this, some of the biggest names and the people that, shall we say, have the excuse to be list off their accreditations and all this stuff, tend to be the ones that are the most humble, that I've worked with have been the most humble, the easiest to work with. Because I think at the end of the day, they realize it's really about this human-to-human connection. And yeah, that's a story I've done, and this is incredible accomplishments, but they're seeking that human-human connection and to connect there. And then you can add in the other things. So that's been something that is surprising to me in my role as we're talking to these heads of these incredible organizations, the people that have, won prizes and all these things. But often the ones that have the longest list are the ones that are the most humble and the most just, hey, whatever you need, we're here. Like, let's connect. What's our goal? Let's do this as a team.
Probably also the fact that they've been probably in touch with so many different people and they understood that this is, at the end of the day, that's the game, the human connection. And I think that's powerful, coming from you directly, because you also, you are in this every day. So that's super important. So perfect. We understood how to use storytelling. What do you think it's the next phase for a speaker to also connect with the audience and at the same time make the event planner proud because they trusted him or her with that application and they now, they're taking that stage and then deliver the presentation. What do you think after the storytelling, it's a good, like maybe a tip on how to deliver that presentation? Because of course, the person that's on the stage, it has to be an expert, of course. So they have to know what they're talking about. But then maybe what's something that would event planner think and say like, okay, if he would do this or if she would do this, it would be awesome.
Yeah, no, fantastic. So the one thing I'll start with saying is never, ever, ever, ever get on stage and say, I don't really know why I'm here, or I don't really know if I have something new to share. You're all so impressive. Because I've seen so many speakers do that, like do sort of like the self-depreciating comments at the beginning, because they're trying to create sort of that commonality of that connection point, but that also doesn't feel authentic. And that also, what basically, if another narrative is to go, I don't know what these guys were thinking when they hired me. They're clearly not doing their job very well. So here goes nothing. And so that's just one thing I would say, but please don't ever start your talk with that sort of, throwaway comments, I sort of call them, because I think come in, stand in your power, stand in your confidence, like you are there for a reason. You're hired, the contract is inked, you've communicated. So come in and take up your space and share your message confidently. I think that's first and foremost. In terms of knocking it out of the park, so for us, we always try to have sort of coaching conversations, or I always try to have a coaching conversation with whoever the speaker is going to be, to talk about and sort of set goals for that specific talk with the speaker. Obviously, we're not asking for a new, like 100% new content to be delivered. But we're asking that they deliver on, the message that we hired them to deliver. And so we'll often have these sort of coaching conversations to say, hey, like you're falling at this point within the overall program. So here's the points we'd love for you to hit on. I think that applies. Does that make sense to you? And it really is this back and forth. And so for me, it really is as simple as just delivering on what they said they're going to do. Like following through when we coach you, or I coach you on something for a specific, trust that the meeting planner knows their audience and knows where they're talking about, knows what the end goal is, and follow through on that. Like that to me is knocking it out of the park. We want to see you succeed as a meeting planner. We all are, our success is intertwined. So when you succeed as a speaker, we succeed as a learning planner, a meeting planner. We all win, and that's really ultimately the goal at the end of the day. We want you to succeed, and so I think knocking it out of the park really is just showing up and doing what you said that you did. If you're not clear, follow back up. Hey, we had this conversation. I'm not sure I understood the point. Oh my goodness, we would much rather clarify than die in the back of the auditorium because we're like, what just happened? That's not what we talked about. So I think that kind of having that conversation, being open, I often say it's sort of like the 80-20 rule. 80% of the content is like what you know. This is, you've got it cold. This is your story. You're confident. And this 20% is what you're willing to adapt and work with us to, so that it most connects to the audience. We're not asking for full-on curated brand new content for a specific audience. We want it to be tested and tried and know this is not the first time it's being delivered. But we also want to know that you took into consideration who's sitting in the seat and have adjusted it so that it will most impact them.
No, I think that's so important, the fact that you mentioned that, because I think maybe a lot of people would think that, oh no, I'll say that I want to create a custom presentation for your event, but then on your end, you'll say, no, we don't want to do that because we don't know if that one actually works, because if you've never delivered it before, how do we know that if it actually...
It's usually a red flag for me. And I know that it's coming from a good place, but that and the speaker reel, to me, I go, it's neither here nor there. Like, that's great. Maybe somebody else really wants that, but that's not, at the end of the day, that's not what I'm looking for. I want to know this is tried and true content. And I want to actually see you deliver full content in front of an audience similar to mine.
No, that's great to know. So up until this point, we know what to do, to improve our chances to be booked. We know how to start the presentation using storytelling, what to deliver. What do you think it's the best way for a speaker to end the presentation to kind of wow the audience, but at the same time, wow the, in a good way, the event planner, the meeting planner? Because sometimes the audience may be happy, but if you go over 15 minutes and now you take 15 minutes for the next speaker, the event planner may be mad a little bit, and you're probably not going to get booked the next time or whatever. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You're right.
But what do you think it's the best way to wow both the audience and the event planner, at the end of the presentation?
I think, I want to be able to say these groundbreaking things, but really coming back to answer kind of all of your questions summed into one is deliver what you said you're going to do. Read the fine print, get clear on what's being required of you. Go in, do that to the best of your ability, which means like stay on time. If they want Q&A, allow time for Q&A. If they ask you to show up early, show up before they ask you to show up. They ask you to share your slides, share them before the deadline. All of those sorts of things go such a long way in building a relationship, because ultimately you want to build a relationship. If you want this to be somewhere where you get invited back, you're looking to build a relationship. And so just in any other relationship that you're building in life, whether it's personal or in business, that's built on trust. You do what you say you're going to do. And so this is no different. It's not more complicated than that. It's be clear on what's expected, deliver that, show up on time, answer questions, whatever they're asking for, I think is really, really important. And then specifically for the talk or your keynote or whatever you're doing, I have found that really effective coming back and looping back on the inspiration point. I think when you engage people's minds, that's important and effective. But I think what really lasts is when you're able to also engage their heart and emotions. And so being able to then end and thinking about, okay, what's the ending emotion that we want people to leave on? What's the question we want them to be asking themselves? So think about that. I think you can also go back to meeting planner and say, hey, in the grand scheme of things that is happening at this event, what's the question you want them to be asking at this point? What's the sort of emotional state you want them to be in? And then end there, ask questions, deliver there. I mean, to me, that's the biggest deal. And for someone to be able to be flexible and have maybe that 20% where they're adjusting to help us tell that overarching story, oh my gosh, that's gold. I think one of my biggest pet peeves in working with speakers, if I can say that, is when they come in and sort of fail to recognize that there's so much else going on. in the course of whatever the event is. They kind of come in and think that their 15, 20, 60-minute piece is the only thing happening. I think and I think I probably speak for all meeting planners everywhere when I say that. But when you can come in and acknowledge, hey, I know there's other things going on, and this is a piece of the puzzle, and how can I deliver on this piece so that it sets the next piece up for success, and so on and so forth. I think that is such a win, and that really is knocking it out of the park. To me, because maybe you're not the closing keynote, high inspiration. Maybe you're somewhere in the middle, but if they're thinking about it, they've got a plan for what they want people to be feeling or doing and going from that place. And so asking that ahead of time, I think goes a long way.
I think it's super important. Even just the fact that you said, make sure you deliver on your commitments and what you said you're going to do. I guess it all comes down to now, it's not just a speaking engagement. It's about, the relationship between the meeting planner and you. And now they know that they can count on you maybe next time, maybe in the future, and things like that. And that actually gets me to the next question is, all right, we know we delivered a great presentation. The event is still going. What do you think it's a good, not from a tactical standpoint, but what's a good way to keep in touch with an event planner, with a meeting planner, to maybe bring more value to them in the future, to kind of, get more chances to be rebooked? I know some conferences don't want the same speakers year after year, and some events will just say like, no, we just for the next 5 years we don't want the same speaker or the keynote speaker. But what's a good way to maybe follow up or actually increase a little bit the chances to get booked in the future, other than just deliver a great presentation, like making sure that, you follow up next day or 2 days later and say, hey, I hope I did a great job at your event, or like, what do you think it's something that just kind of made you feel, okay, this person understands that it's not just about them?
No, that's great. And I have so many examples of that being done really, really well, and then so many of it really, really not. So you're absolutely right that I think like step one is just showing up and delivering and doing a great job. But then there are a lot of other factors that go into it. I think we're similar in the sense of like, we're not going to have the same speaker back year after year for the same event. That being said, I think there's probably a lot of people that maybe they say that, but there's probably other opportunities within their organization or other things that they might either know about for other organizations that they could refer you to, even within their other stages or other opportunities within their own organization. So I think you're talking about nurturing the relationship. And again, I think it's similar to anything. When people in life start to feel like it starts to feel inauthentic, I'm only doing this because I want something from you. Well, like nobody likes to feel that way, meeting planners included. And so I think getting a sense for, you've had the opportunity to work with whoever that meeting planner is to that point, getting a sense for how they like to communicate, what's important to them, maybe getting a larger sense of what's going on within the organization or within their job to say like, okay, I know that they're looking for other things. So they're looking for speakers around innovation. That's not me, but you know what? I know somebody that I met at a recent event who's great on that. I've had a couple speakers do this, and I love it when they say, hey, I'd love to introduce you to my friend that talks about this. I know you said you're looking for someone that, that just, to me, that just underscores the value of, that first person, because they're saying, hey, I'm not just here for how you can help me or what I can get for you, but I just want to add value. And I think when people come to the table and say, hey, how can I add value in this relationship? And so treating it just like any other relationship, I'm going to reach out periodically and say, hey, saw this, thought of you. Hey, I have new content I'd love to share with you sometime, so you're up to date on how I can help and serve this audience. Hey, I just heard this fantastic speaker. They're amazing. You should hear them. I think it doesn't have to be so much more complicated than that. Where it can go really wrong is a lot of follow-up emails. It's the hey, here's my super, super long email with 25 attachments. Can we schedule a call this week? And then it's hey, don't know if you, 2 days later. Hey, don't know if you saw, or 2 days later, the first one sent on a Friday, the second one sent on a Sunday. Hey, I don't know if you saw my email, but can we, and at that point it's like, listen.
I may need to unsubscribe because you
Right. Right, exactly. I just start to respond, unsubscribe. No, I wouldn't do that. But like nobody, it's like the door-to-door salesman that like won't go away, at that point. And you go, okay, nobody wants to, that's not the friendship you want to build or the working relationship you want to build. So I think just the sensitivity to go, hey, like I haven't heard a response, or hey, I know that they're launching this whole thing, we'll give it some time. Or to follow back and say, hey, I know it's got to be X, Y, or Z going on. This is where there's value. So I can't give you an exact formula to say this is how much, I know personally we always endeavor to provide quick responses. This is not always possible. So coming to it with some understanding, and then again, I think just understanding of the greater context and having the conversation also be about adding value through the process. I know that that's my hope as well, that I'm not just going to reach out, as I say this in practice, what I preach, not just going to reach out when I need something to go, hey, I heard so-and-so is looking for someone on this content. You're building an actual working relationship. And so for us, I know we mentioned earlier there being an application process. That's not actually always the case. And I know that that's a formal application process for speakers is not actually how we handle things within my organization. Some may. We often have these conversations throughout the year, and it's sort of this mental or an actual, physical Rolodex of people and content and different things. And so when we're creating new offerings and learning, we'll go, there's this person I met 2 months ago that I just want to get on, want to get on our stage, want to get before our audience. Twist, like, how can we fit this in? Or, here's somebody else in a different organization or organization around this. Oh, wait, I remember that conversation and that face comes to mind, or that name comes to mind, and do it. So oftentimes that's a lot more, and the follow-up will happen at that point, as opposed to there being like an official, hey, we're taking applications for this thing. Because we so tightly curate the story and the narrative of what we're doing, that's often how it happens.
No, and I love the fact that you actually mentioned, related to the previous part of the question, the fact that you said, I don't have a short tactical answer for you, because I think a lot of people think that it's just a matter of, maybe using a specific CRM that sends an email when the person opens it or something like that. And I love the fact that you said, no, it's actually about making sure that you create that, relationship, that friendship, basically, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not just one person winning, it's a win-win situation, because if you're able to deliver that experience for the audience, making the event planners happy, and then making sure that you at least ask, a friendly question like, hey, I hope I did a great job, or if I didn't, maybe you can let me know what I did wrong, or like whatever, right? Like, how do you want to ask it? But I love the fact that you mentioned that. So I know we're getting close to wrapping things up in here. If you would be to leave the audience, so every time with every guest, I like to give the audience one short-term task to implement and one long-term. Meaning, what is one thing that a beginner speaker can do tonight to start working? It can be branding, it can be working on their messaging, it can be researching maybe 5 conferences, like you said, and then long-term, make sure that they can do something for the next year to improve their chances to maybe get booked on more stages, or be recognized as a person that other conferences could trust. Could you give us a short-term and a long-term task for people listening?
Sure. So short and long-term, I would just start from the point of saying that your story matters, that you have something unique to offer the world. And whether you've written a book about it, have 5 million followers or 5, haven't gotten to the point, you have a message and a story that can help improve someone else's life. And I think when you seek to serve, you'll be amazed at what can happen and where you can go and what can happen. So just starting from there, first of all, I think is huge. In terms of short-term practical things, I think before you get the fancy website and have the speaker reel or whatever it is, I think you can today sit down and create an abstract. And what I mean by an abstract is a one-pager, 2 to 3 paragraphs on the topic that you talk about. Maybe you have a couple topics. So have a one-pager for each of the topics that you talk about. 2 to 3 paragraphs. This is what we cover. This is, and then bullet point. These are the major takeaways. This is what your audience can expect to learn. If I come and talk about customer service, the X, Y, or Z is what's going to happen. This is what they can implement when they go. That one-pager will serve you so well. In addition, your bio. So it's having a one-pager bio, maybe the front's your bio, the back is your 2 to 3 paragraph abstract on your topic, and have one for each topic that you want to be hired to speak with. I think that's the first place to start. If you can really practically just have that as a resource, it doesn't have to be super fancy, perfectly designed, but starting there and then building to more of the brand of having an online presence that can tell your story and who you are when you're not in the room or you're not on the call. I think that those are really important pieces because frankly, we don't necessarily come back. We don't necessarily come back to look for the bestseller book. Those things don't hurt. Those are all helpful and they start to build out the story of who you are. But you can also effectively tell the story of who you are and what you offer without those. Those are just sort of proving your point as you go. You don't have to start with those. In terms of short term, I would start there. In terms of long term, be really specific about what you want and what you offer. So like we talked about, start to research what stages you want to be on. I think so much of this comes back to just common, be a good human principles. But again, nobody wants to go out with the person that's asked every single person to prompt. They want to know that you're the first person they ask. So, don't send the same request to every stage. Think about specifically and strategically, who do you want to go after, and then make it specific, make it intentional, show up and go, you know what, this is who my target, that stage, that organization, that meeting planner, that's your target audience. Then be specific to who they are and how you can reach them. I think that will go a long way.
Awesome, Hannah. So you gave us some incredible tips in here. Is there anything that I have missed maybe out of the whole, because I tried, if you've noticed, I tried to ask the questions basically from before even people start to kind of consider speaking all the way to delivering and then following up and increase their chances. Is there anything that I have missed out of this entire process? Maybe? I
can't think of anything that you've missed. I think we really covered a lot of it. And I think, again, a lot of it boils down to be a great human. Show up, do what you say you're going to do, be kind in your interactions, follow through with what you promised, and build authentic connection and human relationships. And you'll see it grow from there.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for sharing all these golden nuggets with us. I'm sure the audience will take a bunch of notes, and we'll probably even put in the description below a couple of the things that you just mentioned. We'll put the bullet points with all the questions, of course, but also the fact that you said, build the one-pager, the one-page type of sheet for speakers. So we'll put a template in there that people can actually download and access. But again, thank you so much for taking the time to share all your experience with us. Maybe if it's to leave the audience with just one thing to kind of think about at the end of this episode, what would that be? I think what I understood out of this episode was you really focus on the storytelling part so much, and I think a lot of people maybe miss that. But I get, is that the core messaging part of this entire process?
I think I think yes, but I think probably narrowing it down even further to that, if I was going to say one thing to the audience, it would be authentic. Know what you bring to the table, know who you're serving, know how you can help, and authentically show up as yourself.
Mic drop. Thank you so much again.
No, my pleasure. Thanks, Marian.
Hey, podcast listeners, I want you to know that I really appreciate your attention and I don't take it lightly. That's why each month we pick a lucky winner and we give away books, mentorship, software, courses, iPads, and other cool stuff. The way to enter is go to clientacquisitionpodcast.com and sign up. You'll get all the details there. Talk to you guys soon. Take care.